Hello, everyone, and welcome to Earp Sister Feels, episode number 20. My name is Kevin Batchelder, and on this video, I'm going to cover the Wynonna Earp episode, Colder Weather, Season 3, Episode 3, aka the Grief episode. Welcome back, everyone. Appreciate those of you that are regular viewers, sharing your thoughts on social media or sending in some video comments. Also, I know I've got several new people who've mentioned in the last week or so you're jumping in on these videos, so that makes me so happy. I love the community aspect of this. Rewatch here, the first 3 seasons of Wynonna Earp. So appreciate it very much. Now, if you are new or you're a regular one, a reminder, I love to get the video comments from folks to include, including your thoughts on this particular episode or on my video itself. For approximately the first 48 hours after I release them, you'll notice down below there's a button that says record a reply. You don't need a special app, just need to be using your smartphone. You tap on that, you can record a video, play it back, make sure you're comfortable, and then save and send it to me. And then after those couple of days, I put all those comments together with mine and release the final video on YouTube. Makes for a lot of fun way for us to do this rewatch of the first 3 seasons of the show. So look forward to hearing from you. If video isn't your thing, that's perfectly fine. Love to get your comments on Twitter or Facebook as well. All right, let's talk about this particular episode. Actually, before we do, we'll jump in again with a reminder that Earp Expo is coming up in just a few weeks' time, less than 4 weeks at the time of this recording. So looking forward to moderating the panels there along with Bonnie. We're both very excited to be a part of the convention, and I am very honored to be moderating the Earp Sister panel that'll be taking place there with Mel and Dom. So if you're coming to the con and like me, you're a big Earp Sister fan to the point that you have an Earp Sister t-shirt of some type, do reach out and let me know. We're doing a group photo shoot for all of us in our t-shirts together during the con, probably after that Earp Sister panel, but I've set up a discussion area on Slack for that. So do reach out if you want to be a part of it, and I'll get you some details. All right, let's talk about this particular episode. And before we get into any of the scenes, I do have to give the shout out to the amazing job the music folks did to create that acoustic version of the theme song to start. That doesn't cue the waterworks, man, I don't know what does. And every single person I know that I've talked to that's a fan of the show, and we bring that up, the eyes roll and you kind of take that deep breath because, man, talk about the way to set a mood. You go into this episode on a rewatch knowing it's going to be an emotional, tough one, and then, that starts and just, man, bring out the tissues. So kudos on a great job there. And also a great job to Emily for writing this one. It's got to be a tough one to do, but she did a great job there. As you've heard me talk about, probably if you listen to podcasts we do, this is a tough episode. I can't say that I like it, only in the sense that how can I say I like something where I see characters that I care about in pain in an episode that makes it hurt so much to watch. So it's a bit of a dichotomy. I mean, I am so proud of it, and I love that it's here, and I appreciate it, but it's tough for me to say I like it for that reason. But that's just the way I compartmentalize things a bit. And we don't have many Earp Sister scenes. We have them together in a few scenes, but we just have the one big one, and I do mean big one at the end of the episode. But let's touch on the times they are together, as we always do. We have it at the very beginning of the ep, when Wynonna's out in the woods, drunk as a skunk, and can't even stand up, can't even shoot straight. Waverly and Nicole are together trying to give her some space to grieve and deal with things, and they come in to kind of rescue her when we have that Reverend show up. So nice to see them there. They're also together a little later on when the funeral home guy is there at the homestead, and they have to go through that whole process of picking out a casket and all that stuff that goes on. And while we get to have a little chuckle with Nicole talking about how she wants to deal with it when her time comes, we also get the very poignant situation where Wynonna is simply just nope, or trying to nope it all away. And Waverly has to basically be the big sister to, I'm here, I can take care of it, and so forth. So she's the one taking care of Wynonna, which is great to see. We also have the whole 4 of them together when Doc is there, when they're all just sitting around the homestead. Waverly's the nervous one, talking about making sandwiches to feed an army, and Nicole's being the rock, and Doc is kind of being, Doc there. Again, tough to watch, all of them dealing with the grief differently there. But those are the times they're together up until the final scene, or the final Earp Sister scene, not the final scene of the episode. And this one is, a tearjerker, plain and simple, because it means so much to me, and certainly I'm sure many of you. And it mirrors scenes we've seen, especially very early in the series. The 2 of them at the homestead, by the fire, outside. And in some ways, it's almost identical to those earlier ones from seasons previous. But so much has happened to both of them, so it's that great way of looking at characters, and in some ways haven't changed at all, but have also grown quite a bit, both in how they've dealt with what's going on in their lives and also in the relationship together. Waverly nervously blurts out that she found out there isn't a plot for her in the family plot, and Wynonna doesn't even bat an eye at it. We were never going to do that. You and I are going to be buried on the homestead side by side. Whew. That's really something that hits me every time I think about it and see it and re-see it. Again, the dedication of the two of them together there. And then Wynonna's, saying the line, "You're my favorite person in the whole wide world, baby girl." Stating it out loud. And baby girl as the emphasis just drives it home. Again, just beautiful, so meaningful, and so powerful. And then the thing, doing my best here, gang, that really gets me, especially since I'm doing this in the middle of our fight for Wynonna, when Wynonna opens the envelope from Dolls that has just the photo in it, and it's the photo of all of them, obviously at a happier time, all being together around a table and so forth, and Waverly's asking what it means, and Wynonna simply says, just keep going, keep fighting. And if that isn't an exclamation point on exactly what we're all doing right now, I don't know what would be, kids. I mean, that just blew me away with the goosebumps. I had forgotten those specific words. And then seeing that and putting that out on social media recently, really, we're all just doing the best we can, keeping the fight going. I totally, in my heart of hearts, believe we will win eventually. We will have the show back. I don't know when. None of us do. But it is an unwavering belief on my part, and it's because of the amazing community we have of Earpers. So keep being your awesome selves, doing what you can, and don't ever doubt that, or yourselves for what you're doing. So this episode, with the grief and the meaning and tying into the fight for Wynonna, I will admit this is probably my second or third, maybe fourth time trying to record this video without breaking down. So feel free if you're doing comments. If it takes you more than one try, I totally get it. But appreciate you all checking in, keeping up. We're going to keep working quickly. I have to be able to finish this by Earp Expo. So every couple of days, look for one of these videos. And I love the comments I get, be it video or otherwise. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for being here, and I hope you all take care.
All right, so Earp Sister Feels for episode 3 in season 3. Pretty big emotional episode for this one. I think really there's not a ton of scenes together. We have a pretty big one. But I think it's really interesting that we get to see grief with both of them. And we get to see grief with everyone, but specifically for the Earp sisters, and how, especially with how much they've grown and how much has changed for them over since season 1, essentially, because season 1 starts with a funeral. That is why they all come together. That's why Wynonna comes back in the first place. So we sort of get to see a little bit of that then, and then with Shorty's funeral 2 episodes later. So there's lots of death right at the beginning. And I think that it's really interesting to see them grieve here because it is very reminiscent of what was going on in early season 1, mainly because we sort of see Wynonna just avoid, and not want to deal with any of it. And I mean, but also these girls have dealt with grief their entire life. I mean, they grew up in purgatory where they were the girls with no family and a mom who had abandoned them. So lots of, I'm sure that all of that comes back, and I would imagine that that probably has a lot to do with why Waverly is a person who uncomfortably laughs in times of grief, which is, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why, and everyone expresses grief differently, but I would imagine that having to be the kid sister of a whole family full of abandonment, essentially, and death, that is probably a pretty solid way to cope. So I think that we see her sort of revert back into that, and we see Wynonna like want to go back to how she was and just run and not deal with it and get out of Dodge. And I think now that the show has grown, we see how everyone that's around them can support them as well. But there's like a little tiny moment after like in the homestead, after Doc leaves, after they sort of have that like little bit of tension there. I do think it's important that Wynonna says nothing because she knows that Waverly is grieving. But there's a part where Waverly turns to Wynonna and it's after Nicole has said something about Doll's duty and things like that. She turns to Wynonna and says, she said duty. Like, just like this light little tiny joke that is like grounding for the both of them. And I think that is very telling of where they're at this point. Even just being able to be lighthearted around each other instead of, which is a little bit of walls taken down, I think is pretty important. And then of course we have like the big confessional fire scene at the end. I like the nonchalance that Wynonna brings with Waverly's confession of not being part of the Earp plot. As if maybe Wynonna had thought about that before and all of the sort of crap that Waverly went through, and just still giving her a place of belonging and a place of family, which is something that Waverly struggles with, is pretty moving as well. And definitely a hard episode not to cry through. But I think that we get to see them sort of fall back and fall forward, sort of where they're going for the rest of the season, and some pretty big stuff. So I look forward to hearing the rest of the comments. Thanks, Kevin.
Hey guys, I just had a couple of quick thoughts about this episode. And they're not necessarily even related to the sister moments, even though those do come into play a bit, but I thought it was really interesting, just the way that, like, with Doll's dying and all of them having to deal with the aftermath of that and how they all band together and they talk about it, and they talk about really heavy stuff, like picking out things for funeral arrangements or planning for someone's burial, or just processing the death of a friend, of someone who is their age and who is actually, I mean, they're all pretty young if you think about it. And having had that experience a couple of different times in my own life, I just know how important it is for that community feeling and that openness and talking about the really crappy stuff and like what you're actually feeling, and having people around you that are able and willing to listen to whatever you may be feeling or going through. So I think that's what I honestly took away most from this episode, and the fact that there is that element present with the sisters as well as with both of their friends, and that they all can kind of share that in their community. I just think that's a really cool thing that the show portrayed. And yeah, like on the heels of that, if anyone of you watching this or watching this show, if you ever feel like you don't have that community, please reach out to me or whoever else is on this thread. I feel like a lot of people know that, but in case you don't, like, this is definitely a place where you can talk to people and people are going to listen. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Hey everyone, Jill here, Nedley's office. So yeah, 303. Kevin said so much, and I had to go compose myself just after watching his video because, man, he hit it on the head that it's hard to say that that you like this episode because there's so much pain in this episode. But the other thing that has always struck me about this episode is how much humor there's in it. there's a lot of times I laughed out loud. Even on rewatches, I still laugh at some of the antics. And then there's also so much love in this episode. There's so much love. Just a simple handhold, or I'm picking, at the wake, just Waverly's hand on Nicole's back, or them laughing, the Earp sisters laughing together. And there's just, throughout the whole episode, whenever two characters interact, there's so much love there. Except, of course, some of the interactions that Wynonna had with Jeremy in the beginning of the episode. But other than that, she made it for it at the end. It's a spectacular episode. It's a magnificent episode. And Kevin's right that the acoustic theme at the beginning, right in the feels. I remember watching it live, and all of us were just like, oh, God, we're not going to survive the next hour. And we barely did. So, hats off. This is one of the best episodes out there, even though it's really hard to watch in so many ways. So, yeah, Earp Sister stuff, though. Certainly, Wynonna went through this arc where she was kind of certainly not the stronger one, where Waverly took the role of the big sister, and in many ways Hot took the role of the big sister to both of them. Right from the very opening scene in the woods, when they hear the gun go off or the Wynonna scream, and Waverly and Nicole go running and help her up, and Wynonna's, again, funny, tells Hot, you shot him in the dong, that's so sweet. And at the same time, she's just curling herself into Waverly and letting Waverly support her in that moment. And you fast forward to, where they're talking with the Undertaker, and Wynonna's like, nope, not doing it. And Waverly's trying to tell her, this is an important thing, you have to do this. She's like, nope, not going to do it, can't handle it. And then in the homestead, where Waverly's giggling, Doc's throwing glasses against the door, Wynonna can barely even react. Like, she's just not able to really do anything. She's not functioning, really. And in this scene, Waverly's barely functioning, and then that's when Wynonna turns to Hot, says, what do we do next, Hot? And Nicole steps in and is kind of the older sister for both of them when they need it. And then, it starts, she's getting some tough love. She also hears from Doc that, she said, Wynonna says, we gotta go find Bulshar. And he's like, no, we need to honor dolls. And then, talking with the guy from the Black Badge Division. And then that bar scene, where all the Revenants come crashing in, and Wynonna's starting a little bit to come back to herself, and I love when she calls Waverly on the phone, on the red phone, the proverbial red phone, except it's a literal red phone, and she's like, hey, where are you? We're fighting demons jacked up on dragon juice, where are you? So he's kind of coming back to herself, and she's reaching out, going, hey, Waverly, this is where I need you to be, and where are you? And then, of course, the final scene, the fire. Kevin said pretty much everything there about that scene, about the two of them. They're going to be together forever on the homestead, and that's a comforting thought. I think it's a comforting thought to Wynonna that she's always going to have Waverly, and I think it's a really comforting thought, to Waverly that. There hasn't been a lot of forever in her life, and this is feeling like this is going to be forever, her and Wynonna, no matter what. And I think that's just special. It's just special. So yeah, and of course the photo and the fight for Wynonna, and yeah, there's so much going on in this episode. It made me cry tears of sorrow, it made me cry tears of happiness, it made me laugh out loud. Frequently, it did that all in the span of like 3 minutes. It's an incredible episode, and wonderful Earp Sister moments throughout it, even though it was, not really about the two of them, but it was it was definitely a journey they took together, and it was wonderful to see them going through this together and being together at the end and declaring it's forever. So yeah, great episode. Can't wait for the next one. Bring it on. Keep fighting for Wynonna.
Hi all, Earper Jessica here, going to provide my Earp Sister comments for episode 303. I want to start off by saying that this episode hits so close to home, and the way that they depicted grief in so many forms is just another reason why this show is so much more than just a show. The way the writers continually write real stories showing real everyday people's lives, all while in the context of our demon fighting show, is just incredible. And the cast, amazingly talented in bringing these characters that we love so much to life. I also want to say that, you know, in my life, unfortunately, I've gone through a lot of grief with the loss of family members, and I've seen the way that I handled my grief in almost all of these characters, and just seeing that, reminds me that I'm not alone. So yeah, now for the Earp sisters. The first scene, obviously they're together, and when the scene ends, that small but oh so big embrace that Waverly and Wynonna have, there's no dialogue, but just seeing them embrace each other, you can really tell the love that they have for each other. And then back at the homestead, we see Waverly trying to console Wynonna when they're talking about, the casket and all that stuff, and the way Wynonna handles this by just having to get away is something that I've gone through. At the same time with Waverly, a little bit later, we see that she's trying to keep her mind occupied, and when it comes to talking about the wake, she just gets so giddy and starts making all these jokes. Again, seeing myself in the way that she is going through this, and at the same time Wynonna is off by herself, sitting and not really saying much. And then I just want to also bring up the end of that scene, when Wynonna talks to Nicole. It speaks to so much growth in their relationship, Wynonna and Nicole's, that Wynonna trusts her to ask her those questions, and to help make those decisions. And then again, another not Earp Sisters moment, but speaks so much to Wynonna's growth, not only through the series, but through this episode, and her dealing with grief when she walks into BBD to talk to Jeremy. We see, the whole season, the whole episode, she's put up this wall, and when she sees that Jeremy is in trouble, she breaks down that wall, and she shares her feelings about constantly thinking about everyone that she's lost, and to just keep fighting. And then the scenes that Waverly and Wynonna share by the fireplace, we get a few each season, but I love these scenes because we get to see them talking, and again sharing a real moment between each other, and they're as a whole, they're the ones that mean the most to me. We see that these two sisters, we see the love that they have for each other, and it just radiates off of them, especially in those moments, and reminds us all to keep going and keep fighting. So yeah, those are my comments. Bye.